fuckface. First, take a big step back and literally fuck your own face! Otherwise, I'm gonna have to head down there and I will rain down an ungodly fucking firestorm upon you. You're gonna have to call the fucking United Nations and get a fucking binding resolution to keep me from fucking destroying you. I am talking scorched earth, motherfucker! I will massacre you! I will fuck you up!
Goddamn, welcome back, you filthy motherfuckers, you goddamn degenerates. Welcome back to another episode of Real Ass People's Entertainment. I am your host, Dirty Dan. Today we had on Mike and Chrissy from the organization Courage to Change. Is a non-profit for addiction recovery. It was super cool, this topic that we had on today. It really hits home with me. I have experience with relationships, dealing with addiction, and coworkers and friends, so it really hit home. So if you know anyone that is struggling with addiction, please listen to this episode. Hit them up. They do have some websites that you can check out. They have couragetochangehousing.org, couragetochangeservices.org, and donatectcrecoveryservices.org, and that website is for if you want to donate. And we get into that in the end of the episode about they do send you a little something. It's a candle. Apparently smells really good, but we get into that. So yeah, there's a lot of information I want to give to you, but it's all in the episode, and there was a lot to remember. So honestly, if you got someone that's dealing with addiction, grab a pen and paper and note some of this stuff down. I'll try and put the links in the show notes. I do want to let you all know you can check us out on Instagram at realass_people. You can check me out on Instagram at Big Danny G. You can also check out my photography work at D Block Shots. We're also on YouTube, Real Ass People's Entertainment. I'm trying to stay consistent with that as much as possible. It is a little bit more work to edit videos, and this is not my full-time gig, obviously. But let's get into it. Woo!
This podcast is brought to you by OnlyFans Baristas on Instagram. At OnlyFans Baristas, we promote the hottest bikini baristas around the country and linking you with their OnlyFans.com account. Go follow at OnlyFans Baristas and start connecting with those sexy baristas today.
This is embarrassing. Oh, there it is. Okay. Well, everybody, welcome back to another installment of Real Ass People. I am your boy Dino. That is Dan. And with us, we have, sir, how about you introduce yourself?
Mike Kersey, Courage to Change Housing. Courage to Change Recovery Services.
And I'm Christina Anderson. I'm also on the board of Courage to Change.
Okay, so is it just you two? Or is there more? Or?
There are more board members, but it's just us right now. We also have Billy Landon and Nick McGlashan.
Okay, so how did this all start for you guys? Talk me through this.
Well, let's back up just a second. So,
okay,
you guys. Sorry, I know the backstory, but let's for our listeners. You guys run a nonprofit for addiction recovery, correct?
Yeah, we're in Snohomish County.
You're in Snohomish County.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you guys were down south. This is the very last minute.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm new here. Where is Snohomish County? Where is this?
It's about a half an hour above Seattle.
Oh, okay. So you're way up there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm down south in the hood, so I don't know where any of that is. Sorry.
So my to get us started, I think Ryan was kind of going with this. What started your guys' nonprofit? Like, who was the originator of it, and what was the reasoning in starting it?
Well, originally I was with another nonprofit, and Chrissy came in and was a guest there for housing or something, and that's kind of how we met each other. And I left that nonprofit because it didn't quite fit our profile of what I love doing, and that's helping recovering addicts in a 12-step program. And so they were more of a religious-based program, and were housing for women only. And so I left that nonprofit and went to another nonprofit, which didn't quite fit our profile of what we wanted to do. And so Chrissy, myself, her mom, Kelly Landon, Nick McGlashan. We had Matt Bradley and his wife Angela Shook were on our board, and we went to we started Courage to Change Housing with that under another nonprofit, which was Chrissy, I'm brain dead here. Under Casa de Maria Research Center,
which has been around since 1983, and they are a more of a healing center angle. So we are a DBA, and we're working on getting our own 501c3 with Courage to Change Recovery. And so we were running a house in Linwood that had 30 clients, both men and women, and we ran that house for about a year. And so right now we're fundraising for another house, but in the meantime, we've been doing just basically getting people into detox and treatment. Mike gets about 5 calls a day, and we get about 24 people a month. Well, before the COVID stuff happened, excuse me. But so we basically field calls and then get people into treatment if they are ready, basically.
So quick question. If we could take like 2 steps back, you said a lot of stuff that I didn't understand. So what's a 501c3? What is all of that?
That's a nonprofit.
Okay. So is that like technical jargon for a nonprofit? That's what that is? Oh, okay.
That's what the IRS wants to know.
See, that's what you left out. I didn't hear the government thing, and so I didn't. Okay, that makes a lot of sense right there. Okay. And so you were saying that you're getting about 5 calls a day, and that was prior to all the COVID stuff?
Mike, how many calls do you get right now?
Well, I got like 3 calls today. It's, we get calls from all over the state, to be honest. I mean, I was in Spokane, so we're based in Snohomish County, but I take people as far as Chehalis, and I actually picked a kid up in Spokane and brought him back to Snohomish County, and where he got into housing last weekend. But so we're kind of all over the place. We go where people need us,
Right. That's very cool.
And so, yeah. But the calls, and I'll tell you, our Facebook, which is Courage to Change Housing, if you were to go onto that Facebook page, it's it kind of exploded and went kind of worldwide, because of Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, that really is what kind of excelled us into what we do, overall.
Now, are people, you said you get about 3 calls a day. Are people, like, I think you just said this, but do you converse with people via social media as well? Like, if they can't call you, can they Facebook message you and do that type of stuff too?
Yeah. We're listed as a nonprofit on Facebook.
Right.
So
cool.
We're a business as far as Facebook is concerned. And so they can message me on Facebook or private message me, on the phone, whatever. And you're right. A lot of people don't have phone service. They use every good addict has a Facebook. I mean, every good addict.
I didn't know that.
That's news to me. I just feel like most of the time, so I work in downtown Tacoma, and it's pretty prevalent, some of the issues that we have on the streets down there. And right down the block from us, I had no idea, but it's like one of the biggest, I think my boss said, is like one of the biggest shelters in the area that's like right there. And I had no clue. It's just a giant big warehouse, but like, I would never have thought to ever think that they would have a Facebook. Someone who can, the 2 dots don't really correlate between between that in my head. So
my question is what demographic do you guys help? You guys help out men and women, and what about like teens?
Men, women, children. I mean, we have services that we can provide for them. Because believe it or not, there's a lot of kids on the street that are under the age of 18. And so we have a couple of other nonprofits that we work with to help that can do that, because we're not licensed to take and help children per se.
Okay, so you do outsource some stuff.
Oh yeah.
So how does the process work? So let's say someone gives you a call and you go pick them up, what is the next step? Where do you take them?
What the next step is, I'll talk to them and make sure they're serious and ask them if they are serious. And, you know, if they want, we'll go to any lengths to stay sober and, you know, clean and sober. And then I kind of talk with them for a while and find out where they're at, you know, mentally, because we do have services where I can take them, you know, if they do have issues, which a lot of these guys do. And so, and then I get on the phone when I find out they're serious. Then I start looking for a treatment center or a detox center, right? Because we work with a number of them, but because of this COVID thing happened, the treatment center and the detox center that we work with closed down, and they wouldn't accept anybody, and except in county. So, and that one was in Skagit County, right? So, which is almost up to Bellingham, right?
Right.
So I was ending up picking them up, making sure they're serious, and then Kelly, my other half that gets on the phone, and she was going to be on this podcast but couldn't because she had a doctor's appointment. But so she'll get on the phone and start calling, and we've got resources that go all the way from Bellingham, you know, to Chehalis. And actually the last 4 people I got into detox were in Chehalis, down past Tacoma, down past Olympia, about 50 miles.
That's deep south.
Yeah. And that was, so I was having to drive 250 miles to get people into detox.
Ooh, Jesus.
Wow.
That's a drug.
Yeah, wow. That's dedication, and we definitely need more people like you that'll do that, because I personally don't know anybody that would drive that to help me. I don't think. So that's pretty awesome.
If you were an addict and needed help and you called me, I'd help you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And so when you came on, Miss, I mean, how did the whole connection happen? How did you two specifically link up?
Mike and I?
Yep.
We were on the same board of the previous nonprofit, and then
right. Okay.
We linked up and created Courage to Change. But one of the things I wanted to point out about Mike's story is that not a lot of the nonprofits will actually drive the clients to detox or treatment. And what we noticed was there's a lot of different organizations that are really great, and they offer a lot of amazing services, but the addict has it's like they almost create barriers so that they're not ready, or it's too daunting to actually take it on and make the move. So getting in the car, picking them up, finding them at the gas station. He's even driven out to the middle of nowhere into a homeless encampment, you know, and somehow they had a cell phone and they crawl out of the woods, you know, and get into the car. And but it's getting them from point A to point B, and really walking them through the process.
Right.
Because there is a lot of, it feels really complicated. It's actually pretty simple, but when you're in that position and you feel like there's nobody that's actually willing to help you, you know, for someone to actually show up when they say they're going to, and, you know, be a semi-normal person, and just converse with them and 12-step them a little bit. And so what ends up happening is after they get out of treatment or detox, they'll call Mike again and say, okay, now what? And then this is where we're at, needing a house again. And there's not very many places. I mean, they're all booked. There's so much need right now for legitimate clean and sober houses that aren't trap houses, you know, with government funding, basically.
Now, these clean and sober houses, I'm curious, who funds those? Are they private? Are they government?
So, I know Mike wants to say that. So basically there were grants given to different entities like Cocoon House or Compass Health. And I believe that came from the feds and then through the state, and they were offered to the counties. So then if you were in treatment, you would have your counselor call Compass Health that went through HARPS. And I forget what the acronym stands for, housing, I don't think I'm sounding stupid. But then they would have, they would give the client $1,500, which was equivalent of 3 months of rent. And so then they would move into a house and they would pay $500 a month. And in 3 months, they were supposed to be ready to be back out into, you know, the community. And what we found is that they weren't quite ready after 3 months. 90 days is not that much time. So they actually needed more support. And
Mhm.
you know, at that point, we were hoping that they would have a job and then be able to pay their own rent or be able to move out. But it's not as
Right.
simple. So the funds are pretty grim right now. But that was how the programs were running, is through housing vouchers.
Right. So is all of so kind of breaking that down a little bit for me personally, because this is all new to me, this whole discussion. I've never actually, spoken to someone about this. So they get put in, they give, the $1,500. In that time, obviously they're trying to beat it and recover and start a new page. But I mean, like, how does is everything like it's like a normal tenant situation? Like, does that include everything? Like, how, I mean, do they get,
Well, we
how
were
are they getting clothed and fed?
Yeah, like some of the guys, especially when they were coming out of prison and stuff, they really honestly had
Mhm.
just a shirt on their back. And so
Right.
we relied on other charities to help us out with donations. We'd go in,
Right.
and Value Village would help us out and stuff. So we would have like a small little closet that they could choose from. But that was a big
Mhm.
need. And so once they have stable housing, they have a bed, they have a door that locks, they have, and we would have food donations and things like that. They wouldn't starve. They felt grounded in that moment. Then they were able to start working with their 12 steps. They would get a sponsor. So the house had rules. You had to go to 3 meetings a week. You had to do your chores. You had to attend the house meeting once a week. And just those little bits of responsibility gave them that stability to where they would start working a program. And so we weren't just a clean and sober house. We were a recovery house because we demanded a little bit more from them.
Right.
What I'm trying to figure out how to phase this question. What's like the general attitude or I guess kind of like relapse kind of a thing of people in the sober housing? I had a former coworker years ago who was living, I believe it was called an Oxford house.
Mhm.
It was a clean and sober house, and his girlfriend lived in a female clean and sober house. And I loved hanging around him. It was a lot of positivity, just want to live a good life and just enjoy the small things. And then just about, I would say 50% of the people I knew from both houses within 4 months, just, it kind of seemed like it was just a lot of bullshit. Like,
Well,
he ended up, the entire time I was hanging out with him was lying to me about everything. At the end, he ended up using and drinking again. I mean, and then someone ended up dead. I'm just like, what's the general tone there? Because I mean, I have a little bit of experience kind of being around a few people in my past, but I'm just kind of curious.
Well, it's really
Well,
hard.
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you're dealing with so many different demographics and backgrounds, and most of the addicts, most of the people in recovery have PTSD. They have a lot of emotional issues and just a whole bag of tricks that when they're living in that kind of community, it's hard, especially if there's only a couple of house managers or, they're just going off some rules that they're supposed to follow, to really monitor everybody and watch for their patterns. And when they start to slip and relapse, you catch it well before they pick up. It's very difficult. And there's not a lot of funding for social workers. You have to rely on volunteers to come in and these guys, but they almost need like babysitters, and a lot of them don't even know how to live a sober life at all. And they get their first paycheck and they don't know what to do with, the $500 they just got. And so they go out and get loaded. It's like you almost need mentors or something for these guys to show them how to do everything again. I mean, I had clients that didn't even know how to do a load of laundry. They had never done a load of laundry.
Wow.
And it just didn't even occur to me.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely something you don't think about, where like, hey, could you clean your clothes? And you don't ever think to, I don't know how to do that, especially with, grown men. And you were saying, some of them who have come out of incarceration and stuff too, like I feel like they kind of have an idea, but even then sometimes too, like they might not know either. And it's just seems like it's a very vicious cycle, especially with, you were talking about having limited funding and the amount of people there. It almost seems like it's vital to have almost like a security force in place there, because it would be so, I mean, that the way that you're describing it, it just, like you said, it sounds like it would be so hard with such limited resources to be able to address all of the small things and make sure you keep your eye and attention on every little thing. I mean, goodness, that's a lot right there. Yeah.
Absolutely. We had, oh man, how many cameras did we have? Well, the whole house was cambered, and then we had hidden cameras, and so yeah, it was all about accountability, and keeping people on the narrow, and we had a lot of problems, and we learned a lot. I mean, I can't even, in the last couple of years, dealing with addicts right out of tent. Like Christy was saying, they don't know how to do a load of laundry. They've been addicts on the street for 10 plus years, some of them, or they've been just coming out of prison. And, the success rate is just as the norm. And, and that is, an addict, somebody getting into recovery for the first time, their chances are 1 in 100 that they're going to get clean and stay clean. And what we tried to do was befriend them in a way that we could talk to them, we got to know them, so we got to see their patterns maybe and catch it before, because an addict, they relapse long before they pick up. They're already contemplating what they're going to do, where they're going to get their next drug, how they're going to do it, how they're going to sneak around, whatever it might be, the whole gambit they go through before they pick up. And, we had a really good success rate. I felt we had some really good people in there. In the year that we were at the last house, we had 90 people come and go. And out of that 90 people, there's about 10 of them that have got clean and stayed clean. So if you look at the national average compared to what we were doing.
True, Mike, that's not true. More people have, they just don't call you every day.
Well, maybe so, whatever it might be. But the people that are active that I see, let's put it that way, are about 10% compared to the 1%, the national average.
So,
so we're above the national average as far as
that's really good, guys. That's definitely something to be very proud about.
So I got a question. How does it feel like? So if you have like 90 people come and go, and let's go with the number that you said, 10 remain clean and sober. Does at the end of the day with 10, is it kind of I feel like I'm fighting a never winning battle at the end of the day, or does it feel like even with all this fighting, one person's clean and sober? So
you know what it is? It's a labor of love, because none of us get paid. We're lucky to get our gas paid, right? And when we were in the last house, at the end of the month, after everybody in the house paid their rents and everything else, we were lucky to have a couple $100 left over, right?
Wow.
And so, because we provided everything except their food and the clothing and their personal stuff, which was usually donated, or they had food stamps, and we would help them get those if they needed them, and take them to DSHS where they could, maybe if they had other issues that had to be taken care of, different services we could take them to, guys right out of prison, or anybody that wanted to get a job. I have resources I can take and get the resumes done. What's funny? Even if they're a drug dealer, right, and have been for 10 years, you can still get a resume.
Yeah.
And that's a fact.
Yeah.
New kids that were that way, and they got great jobs and moved on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's a process, and it really is a labor of love.
These people that sorry.
I was just going to say the clients that, let's say they lived there for a few months and then they relapsed, they will remember when they're ready again what that stability felt like. They had a safe place.
The seed is planted.
Exactly.
It's about planting the seed, planting the seed and giving them a taste of recovery that maybe they'd never had before. And people that care about them and want to help them, in their process and getting back. I mean, we don't shoot our wounded, right? And I don't hold grudges. And we had people that did personal things against us, but it didn't matter, because I know where they're at mentally. They're addicts, right? And they do these things over and over and over again, expecting different results. And when they don't get those results, and they realize, hey, maybe it wasn't so bad, and I'll tell you, a lot of my calls are from guys that are coming and going.
Right.
You know, and just recently, I mean, I've gotten this guy into detox 3 times, right, and into treatment, and finally, he's figured it out, right, and what's really cool is, I see him out doing well, and that's the reward.
Right.
That's really the reward.
With all these people that you have coming and going and stuff, and kind of going back to earlier, how it seems like you guys need a lot of help and things like that. Do you guys allow I guess I don't really know how it works, but the people that successfully go through and, really seem to change their lives around, do you guys allow them to like come back and help you guys as like for support and anything that you might need done and stuff like that? Or
Yeah, absolutely. The formula in recovery is one addict talking to another addict.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an alcoholic. I'll have 8 years on the 28th not drinking, but an addict's mind is even a little different than an alcoholic, I found out. And there's something very unique about somebody that's known what it's felt like to put a needle in their arm and talking to another person that needs that type of recovery. And so when they come back and they do volunteering and the service work, that's where the magic happens, because then they know that person has been there, and they really that connection is made. Those are the best volunteers by far, people that understand the addict's mind.
Right. Dan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. So we were talking about a little, kind of touched on the mentality. Is there a different mentality with someone who wants to recover, or get their life back together, from someone who's coming from the street and maybe someone who's coming from prison?
Well,
not necessarily.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, because I've had it both ways coming out of prison. I've had guys come out and do just super phenomenal, get great jobs, move on. We got one kid that was in our house that, in less than a year, he's making $40-some an hour. And he, this kid had been in and out of prison for years. And anyway, he went out and bought motorcycles. He's bought 3 BMWs. I mean, the kid's got just a ton of, but he still lives in a clean and sober house, which is cool, but he's saving his money, to buy his own home.
Right.
And so because the felons, as you well know, maybe you don't, getting a felon into an apartment or getting them into, anything other than clean and sober living for a while, it's tough. I mean, because landlords don't want to rent to felons, and that's one of our major problems with finding a house, is because we house felons. And so, trying to get, we now have people looking for us, realtors and things, but we really ran into a lot of problems with landlords, and we need our own home. We want to be able to buy these homes and move on and continue to open them. Christy could probably talk more about that, but we're a part of the WAQRR, which all our paperwork is certified through the state. So, and that's what the feds and the state are going to require in a very short period of time. The law has already been passed, but the funding is where we're at. I mean, we need private investors. We need private people to come and help us that have a passion to want to help these kids get off the street, and that's one of the main reasons we're here, is because that's what our main goal is fundraising. And at this point, because the world goes around with money, and unfortunately it costs a lot of money to house people and help them with everything, laundry, I mean, clothing, whatever it might take to get them through the day, It's not a cheap investment.
I'm like I said, I'm pretty severely new to this topic. Could you two, also for our listeners who may not know, could you two talk to us about what exactly the 12 steps are? Because I actually have no idea what they are.
Like recite them?
Well, I mean, okay, realistically, you don't have to recite all of them, but like, I mean, like, can you give me like the first three? Like, what are the first,
what's the cliff, the bullet points?
Okay, so step one is you realize that you were powerless over your addiction, and that your life had become unmanageable. And then 2 is came to believe a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity. And 3, turned your will and your life over to the care of God as you understood him. So basically, you have to admit that you're in, I can swear on here, but you're an F up.
You can, wait, hold on. Let's back this up. You can definitely swear. So if you want to re-say that, you can definitely do that.
You have to admit that you're a fuck up.
Okay, cool. Got it.
And that everything's gone to shit.
Yeah.
2, basically, you have to step out of the driver's seat and know that you're not in control. And when you thought you were in control, everything was going upside down. So then basically turn it over and you get out of your own way. You know, that's where, you know, the support comes in. And in recovery, they talk about, you know, it's service, sponsorship. What's the third leg, Mike?
It's sponsorship. Okay, let's edit this part out.
I was gonna say we'll edit it out. Don't you worry. You know it, but now that you're on the spot,
I remember everything all the time.
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it. It's right here, the triangle.
Okay.
You know,
that's funny.
Anyway, so you get the program for yourself, and then you give back. And so, you know, in that volunteer environment, once you've learned something and you gain something, you give it back to the newcomers. So at the houses, we would put somebody that had a little bit of time and started getting that momentum in a position of a peer support person or a peer panel member or like a, you know, house manager of some capacity, to give them that sense that it wasn't about protecting their own sobriety anymore. It was actually about protecting the new person that came in. So if they were to find a bag of weed, they would throw it away, not, you know, so they didn't smoke it, but so somebody else wouldn't find it.
Right.
So it takes the pressure off it being all about us. Where addicts are inherently selfish, and everything is about us. We're very sensitive, and so it's a good practice to do the service work so that we're working it for someone else rather than ourselves.
Right. And so she was saying that she was recovering or in that process as well. Are you, sir? Is that something that you dealt with personally as well?
Yeah, I've got 20 years clean and sober.
Oh, well, congratulations to both of you, really. Off. Yeah, right. Let me just throw that out there really quick. Also, to side question, do you guys see a lot of people who like armed forces and stuff like that as well? Because I mean, I know quite a few people that struggle with, like, you know, mental stability and addiction as well as like that. Do you guys have an is it mostly just people that are on the streets, or do you have more of like a broader spectrum of people, like someone in my position?
Against anybody.
Well, I definitely didn't think you did, but do you guys, is that like a notable part of the percentage? Do you guys see it often? Or?
Not necessarily. I mean, and we're actually in the Armed Forces magazine that comes out, and I think the year subscription is coming up again, but we actually had a client that was in the Armed Forces that bought us a year of advertising in the Armed Forces magazine, right?
Wow, that's awesome.
But the thing is a lot of those guys have resources because the military takes care of them, you know, a little better than what we do. But there are veterans on the streets, you know,
right?
And more than what you think. They just opened a veterans home in Everett, Washington. I think it's 90 or 100 beds. And so a lot of those veterans that were on the street are now in that home. So we don't see a lot of them. I don't, maybe a couple we've had, but yeah, not many.
I have a question going back, because just popped in my head. You brought up weed. I'm very curious from two people who are recovering. I hear this a lot, and it's a debate all the time. So I kind of wanted to get your guys' opinion. Is weed a gateway drug? I'm very curious.
Well,
Well, it was for me.
Right.
I think it depends. I think that in a clean, sober housing environment, it's just abstinence is the way to go. We've had a little bit of a pickle with the Suboxone, and because that's a prescribed narcotic,
Right.
that not everybody, I mean, basically, I don't know, I don't want to get too political, but it's tricky because you're giving an addict basically a script that they can abuse, they can trade,
Right.
they can sell,
Yep.
you know, and so we were trying to open up a clean and sober house that did not condone medically assisted recovery, but where the legislation is going right now, we can't actually discriminate. So it puts us in a little bit of a conundrum.
I think that's
doctor-
I think that's more of a big conundrum, not a little conundrum. That's
Yeah.
that's a pretty hefty thing right there, and I can't even imagine that battle that you guys must be facing with that as well, because like just like you said, it's not really clean and sober if they're literally just handing it to you. Like it's goodness, you know.
And I suppose you heard about that in Seattle.
Yeah.
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 where they're giving beer and alcohol to keep the addicts in the camps
Are they
so that they're
serious?
not out. Yeah. Yeah, they
What
are.
the fuck?
Yeah, so yeah, if you guys want to go get a beer and a joint later, you can go hang out down at the homeless camp down in Seattle, and they'll hand it out.
Oh my God.
No, I'm going on Friday night. Shit.
They would not want,
Yeah.
they would not want me there.
Jesus Christ. I got
So
a quick question. Might not be quick, but talking about Seattle, I hate Seattle. What are your feelings on those safe injection sites? Do you feel like those help people, or it's just kind of encouraging?
So Mike,
people?
I already know where you're going to go with this, so I'll do the other side. So when I first heard about them, I thought safe, that sounds good. You know, harm reduction, that sounds good. And then I did a little bit more research and looked at their modeling after the place in Vancouver. And it's a little bit tricky because the dealers have immunity in that however many block radius, right? So the building is here where they can go in and get injected. And so the floor above it is where they decide, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to, get clean. And then the floor above that is recovery housing. So if I were newly in recovery and I was living in a safe, clean, sober environment, how would I feel having to walk down the stairs through a place where they were injecting themselves with my favorite drug out onto the streets where my dealer is still standing there selling? That would be extremely difficult.
That's just putting temptation like right in front of your face and just waiting.
Right. So I think the formula was there. I mean, in my mind, I saw this place where there was like, they had all these nurses and doctors and everybody was ready to be there. And they would the addict would walk in the door with their bag of dope and their needle and they would say, wait, stop. There's
Wait.
another way.
wait, so people are helping them? Wait, I'm so confused.
Okay. So I don't know. I haven't seen the one in Seattle.
Okay.
But I think what they're doing is preventing people from just overdosing and dying. Like they're standing there going, go ahead and shoot up, but I've got a bottle of Narcan here that I can, zap
What?
you if you overdose. Yeah.
I feel like you're bullshitting me right now. Like, wait a minute.
Right.
This exists?
Well, I'll tell you, they have underground ones in Seattle
Right.
that aren't funded.
Okay.
But the police and everybody knows they're there. There's 5 of them. Last count that I heard.
Right.
And so, and under the premise of where they're supposed to go in and use, and they have counselors and, people they could talk to that would maybe, get them into recovery rather than, using or plant a seed,
Right.
talk to the guy,
Right.
getting to know him, it's kind of a double-edged sword for me because of what Chrissy was saying. But, if the problem is see, the state of Washington opened up needle exchanges, and there's one in Everett, Washington. There's one in Seattle. They're all over the place, actually.
What does that mean?
A needle
Sorry.
exchange is where a drug
Yeah.
addict can go in, and they bring 5 needles in, and they'll give them 5 needles, so they're using clean needles rather than a dirty needle, right?
Holy shit.
And so
that's harm reduction.
I'm a long way from Michigan. Holy Christ.
They don't even exchange them anymore. They give them out by the boxes now.
Right. Exactly. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. The state, and that's why we're see these needles all over the streets and everywhere.
It's insane.
It's because they don't require them to bring them back. And you have other nonprofits that are out there handing out needles, that are saying, oh, here's, they're calling it harm reduction, but yet they're putting everyone else at danger by leaving a needle out. Matter of fact, I got stuck a couple of years ago, and, I had to go through the aid testings and all that crap, and for Hep C and the whole works.
I have a buddy going through that right now. He was pulling something out of a bin, and he was wearing gloves and everything, but still, a needle's gonna go right through it, and he's going through it, and it's just mentally, it's challenging for him because he doesn't know if the next time he's got to go in for a test, it's going to come up positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it like Is it not like a one and done thing? Like, is he going through it multiple times? I'm kind of confused on that.
You have to get tested. What is it, like a couple times for like 6 months or something like that? Like for like 8 to show up.
Yeah, 6 months. You go in, get your initial test, then 6 months, and then at a year. So
wow.
But they and what I wanted to finish with is that the needle exchanges originally had the same formula that they wanted to use at the safe injection sites, where they would have counselors on site. They would have, literature, they would give out, books and talk to the people. Well, you know what? That all went away. It was good for the first few months, and then it went away. Anytime you give government control of something like that, and I'll take you right to the needle exchange. I could take you down there and we could go get 100 needles right now and not talk to a single person. Unfortunately, that's the way it works.
That's so crazy.
They've got the literature there. Don't get me wrong. Got the literature hanging on the wall and stuff, but nobody talks to you. They might have that's a volunteer-run operation too. Because I have very dear friends of mine that work at the needle exchange in both Everett and Seattle, and they try and get recovering addicts in there to do that. But you got to be pretty solid. To be going in and dealing with addicts that are going to bring their heroin in, to get needles to go out in the back and shoot up, or wherever it might be, So there again, there are people that do it, but it's mostly a volunteer-run deal, and so it's a double-edged sword there, and that's why I have a problem with needle exchanges, because I see it. Might work for the first 6 months, right? But then what happens? Like Christy said, you got your drug dealer sitting outside. It's a place where they can go there, meet your buddy, sell him something that you just stole, or trade him something for drugs, and the prostitutes and everything else start hanging out in the same areas. And it just becomes a cesspool, Say, put it next to the mayor's house. That's what I say.
Now that's a real
the mayor's house.
Let's do that.
That's a real idea right there.
Yeah. Let's put it at the state capitol, in front of the governor, so he can watch it all. Because that's what happens. And they just turn a blind eye to it after a while, and that's my problem.
The same thing with Suboxone is that it's so out of control that putting everybody on a prescription controls that population. And they're supposed to check in with their doctor and get their script, and it was originally designed as a taper drug that you were only on for like, I think 6 months at the most, and then you were completely, but then I heard something that I haven't done enough research to know for sure, but I believe the formula was actually changed around, was it 2018, that the formula of Suboxone actually became an addictive substance, where before, when it was originally designed, it was not an addictive substance.
They sold it as an alternative to get people off. And I'll tell you, I had friends that I paid for personally to go into the Suboxone program, back in the early 2000s. And a very dear friend of mine. I paid for her Suboxone, and it worked. But
Right.
you know, back then they had an administrator. I was her administrator, so she'd have to come to me every day, and I'd give her prescription, and you know, I checked in with the doctor, and he would tell me, okay, time to taper down. And it was a taper down system, you know, for 8 weeks, I think it was the original one.
Right.
And by the end of 8 weeks, she didn't want even the Suboxone anymore. Right? It worked.
Right.
Now, the deal is if you're coming out of prison and you've been in prison as a repeat offender and a drug addict, let's say, and have a few drug offenses, our state, Washington State, will give you a lifetime prescription for Suboxone and $1,000 check when you walk out.
Wow.
And I've
Wait
seen
a
that
minute.
paperwork.
What?
I've seen that paperwork.
That's so fucked up. I'm sorry. That's just like, this is a whole new thing for me. And I just like, I'm like hurting inside about, it's like crazy because, you know, the way that you guys are describing this, it's like, and I also wanted to ask you too, but it almost sounds, and I can see why you might have a vendetta against it, because I feel like it's kicking you in the nuts for what you're trying to do. Like a place like that where like you're trying to actually help people, where like there's this institution that's like saying we're going to help you, but like you just said, you have to walk downstairs and see all your buddies shooting up, and then you got to go outside, and then you got to come back in, where it's like, it's almost like they want the cycle to end, or they want the cycle to continue going.
I don't really think they do. I just don't think they know. I think that it sounds really good on paper, and that if they can harm reduce a certain amount of the population and keep, you know, this many people alive, that they've done their job. If they can take the problem and compartmentalize it and throw a number at it, you know, and regardless of my conspiracy theories about the pharmaceutical industry,
which we all have, don't worry. We all have them.
We're just looking at, you know, how do we help people? But unless you actually go walk down there and talk to somebody living in a tent, or somebody that is a habitual drug user, to understand what they experience, that's where legislation will never really understand it. And there's not a lot of people to stand up for it and say, this is what actually works. Because unfortunately, like Mike was saying, the percentages of people that stay sober are very low.
Right.
And the ones that have gotten through it, you know, that might not be their calling to go back and help all the addicts out, you know, and
Is these plans that they're coming up with, where at first it was, you're going to take this for 8 weeks, now it's, you get it, a lifetime supply plus a check. Is it politicians doing this that are making this decision?
Well, you know, I don't, you know, what I know is that the state of Washington sued the pharmaceutical companies for the opiates, right? For oxycodone and Oxycontin and that they were prescribing. And in that settlement, if you go to it and read it, the pharmaceutical company, one of the things that they gave out instead of money was Suboxone. And they provided to the state, you know, for free or a cheap cost. And I don't know why the prison systems would want to give that out, other than they call it harm reduction. Because if we're giving them a drug that's legal, you know, will that keep them out of prison? And they say that statistics show that it does. Okay?
I feel like that's total bullshit.
They don't have to go out and steal. They don't have to go steal. Oh, I do too. I do too.
Yeah.
Is it the people that make up these plans? Are they kind of just like everyone's complaining about the drug usage and the homeless population? And so the people in charge just like, oh, like, it's not a good plan, but it's a plan just to kind of get everybody to shut up?
Well, it's leaving behind a wrapper on the ground rather than a needle, you know?
Right.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I would rather have a wrapper on the ground than a needle, because I work construction in Seattle, and I don't know how many job sites I've been on. I can't go in the front door of a job site without stepping over, you know, 1 needle, 2 needles, dozen needles. There's a pile in the corner in the alley. There's been times I've worked a block off Pike Place Market, and there's a dude huddled in the corner, literally shooting up. And I'm just, Like I'm staring at you. I'm 5 feet away on the other side of the window, and it's just, and then they just drop the needle and just walk away.
Yeah.
So have
Yeah.
either of you guys ever do you know any opiate addicts, or have you ever had any experience?
My ex that I just got a relationship 3 years, she was hooked on pills.
So
There was a stint in college. I wouldn't say, okay. See, now I kind of feel like I'm disrespecting what you're asking, because I started with, there was a stint in college, but it was like across like a 5-year thing where I very easily procured speed and stuff like that, and definitely
let me ask
abused
you,
the
have you
shit
ever
out of
gone
it.
through withdrawal?
Oh,
Have you ever-
fuck yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah. Like and it was crazy because I was getting my script through the university, and actually the year after I left, they actually got raided by the DEA because of some sort of shit that was going on, and I was probably a part of it because I was not only using it but selling it, and that asshole in school and doing that type of stuff. But when I got out of college, I told myself that I wasn't going to, because I really had no reason to be doing it anymore. And I definitely feel like I did. I was a totally different person, and I had people tell me to my face that I was a completely different person, flipping the switch too. And it's not like I tapered off. I literally just stopped. And I definitely remember those months. It was a shit show, if you will. I can attest to that, especially doing it at the rate that I was doing it, because at my peak, so it was like Adderall, Vyvanse, Ritalin, stuff like that, where I would stay up all night Sunday, sleep Monday, stay up all night Tuesday, sleep Wednesday, stay up all night Thursday, sleep Friday. And it would just every week like that. Like I was sleeping every other day, just speeding dick the whole time for like 5 years straight. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah, I definitely shouldn't laugh at that, but sorry.
No, but I mean, most of the motivation for people continuing to get high is preventing themselves from being sick.
Right.
And so the Suboxone comes in with buprenorphine and naloxone. And the buprenorphine feeds the monsters in their head. When you're an opiate addict, your neural pathways actually shift, so you can't even function in life. Like everything is difficult, everything hurts. The withdrawals, you feel like your arms and legs want to be ripped off. I mean, I've heard my ex-husband. I didn't out him, but he's on Suboxone. And he's described to me a withdrawal, and it just sounds completely horrible. Right. So I understand why these guys are out on the streets, and plus it would be a lot easier to sleep in a tent if you were high, but they've done studies where they gave rats cocaine, and they were hitting it up over and over again, but then they gave them some toys and they stopped hitting the cocaine. They actually played with their balls and wheels and things. And so I think the point of that was that if you give somebody that stability and another option, and Suboxone designed, it was a good thing to get people to feel normality, for their brains to start functioning again, so they didn't have that really sharp withdrawal and relapse, and they would get some footing and be able to stay sober. But the problem I think I have with it now is that the Suboxone is more toxic and addictive than the heroin was. And it takes 8 months to detox off of, rather than the 3 days it normally would if you went just from the heroin. It actually goes into your bone marrow.
The Suboxone does?
I didn't realize it took that long to come off or to.
Wow.
Yeah, that's insane.
Before you completely feel normal. Yeah, and heroin goes to the bone marrow too, but it's actually only a 8 to 10 day detox, right? And then it's the mental stuff, right? But Suboxone literally goes to the bone marrow and stays. It takes 18 months for the body to recycle bone marrow. So you'll be in pain. Your bones will hurt. You will hurt. And everybody I know that has been on Suboxone says they wish they hadn't, right? So when I get guys
Right.
to go into detox, it's one of the big talks I give them is they're going to offer you Suboxone. Don't take it.
Right.
A lot of guys buy it on the street, when they can't
I mean,
heroin.
initially though, does it help?
If it's, I believe it does.
Right.
But see, the thing is, they get on it, and if
Right.
they're not really serious about getting clean and sober,
Right.
then they're going to stay on it. And
It's the other part. They have to have the recovery. They have to
Right.
have the mentorship and the sponsorship and like people
Mhm.
really caring about the recovery. And I think that's I think as a society, we try really, really hard to do things that are awesome, but we kind of fall short and we maybe don't follow it through. And so, I mean, how many homeless people do we have in Western Washington? They would essentially need, one person through like 6 people to walk them through life. There's just not that many volunteers and social workers. So these guys are
Right.
kind of on their own. So
Yeah.
I don't think that Suboxone's a bad thing. I think it was designed initially as a good thing, and it's got its place. But I think that recovery is getting down to the core issue of why you used and healing that depression, that PTSD, whatever it was that you were trying to numb out from in the first place. And that
Right.
takes a lot of hands,
Right. Just like Dan asked earlier, and I kind of had, after talking to you guys and kind of figuring everything out, with the whole weed thing, not necessarily being a gateway drug, because I feel like everybody on the face of the planet is going to have a different opinion, no matter who you ask. But with this state being a recreational state, do you guys fall into a lot of legality issues with people that you're trying to help who try to use it and stuff like that, because technically they are allowed to use it?
Not in a clean and sober house. The laws are totally different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
I mean-
no matter what, they can't.
There are some houses that I think do allow it. And
Mhm.
I'm a proponent of CBD. I think there's, and cannabinoids are amazing. What they've found out they can do for cancer.
I use CBD as well. Yep. Love it.
Yeah, and pain and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, my ultimate goal down the road would be to have a house that let people on medically assisted recovery come in,
Right.
and then when they left, they were off of it. And
Right.
working with other addicts that have been through it, they the clients would have a calendar schedule where they said, like, on day 7, it's going to feel like your skin's falling off, so take an ice bath and drink this
Right.
tea and use this CBD or even the studies behind kratom. Like, I don't know much about that, but I know there's a lot of herbs on this planet that are probably designed to help people through that process. And I would just love it
Right.
if there was all hands on deck and they were able to get people from being completely addicted to a pharmaceutical to being completely clean and sober. That'd be awesome.
I have heard about kratom. I've been wanting to try
What?
that.
What's kratom?
Well, it's normally naturally it's a plant, but they've
Right.
synthesized it, and so now you can get it at like smoke shops and stuff, and it gives you the same kind of effect as opiates do.
Wow. Wait, seriously? Wait,
Yeah,
this
but
is
You have to
It's-
take
they-
enough of them, though, from what I've heard.
What'd you say?
that's crazy.
I've heard you have to take enough of them. Like, you can't just take like 2. You got to take like a little bit more. From what I've heard, I haven't tried them yet, and I've only known one person that's done them.
I've only confiscated it. I haven't ever tried it.
But I want to.
No,
Sorry,
I don't
just-
know.
it was a
I'm
kid-
not
it
really
just-
an opiate person. It's a totally different brain.
That's definitely has been my drug of choice in the past, which I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit. I'm trying to figure out how to like word it. Do you think like everyone can get addicted to drugs, or like some people just don't have, like, is there something like in the, like, do you guys, because you guys know more about this than I do, that like something in the brain that like gets addicted that some people might not like work the same?
Well, so some people are pre-wired for it, and
Mhm.
there's like it's hereditary, genetic even.
Right.
Sometimes it skips a generation, but your grandfather was an alcoholic, so you'll end up being. So that's when you get your drug of choice, whatever it is, and it hits that spot in your brain where you feel amazing. It was like,
Mhm.
this is the recipe. You know, I talk better, I drive better, life is better.
Right.
Then that formula starts to fail. And so then the addict says, well, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be reliant on that. But then they can't stop. Bam. So that's the line that's drawn between somebody that's a normie,
Right.
we call them, like somebody that can have an occasional glass of wine, you know, or partake in whatever, but they don't get addicted to it. So there's like a chemical
Right.
component to it, and there's also a personality component. Some people are just more addictive than others. I've heard
Right.
Pisces tend to be more addicts.
Oh, here we come with the astrological sign. You know, that's a bunch of hokey fanoki shit right there. Okay.
The reason I ask is I back in 2013, December 2013, I ended up having a work accident and I broke my back, and I was put on Vicodin or Percocet, I can't remember which one, for like 8 months, just solid 8 months. And at the end of it, the doctor's like, okay, we need to start like weaning you off. I didn't follow the doctor's instructions. I pretty much, when I woke up in the morning, I felt great, so I didn't need to take it. But I would take my entire day's allotted amount all at one time at the end of the day because I was dumb, and it gave me a great high, and I would enjoy my evening. And then I just stopped. I didn't seem to have any withdrawals. It didn't bother me. It didn't bug me. Just one day I had my prescription. Next day prescription's gone. It didn't faze me at all. And it seemed to like amaze the doctor because she asked me, she's like, how's it going? Wean yourself off? I was like, I just stopped.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing, actually. That's pretty rare. It's interesting. I'm not an opiate person, and I got a tooth pulled, and they gave me a script with like a week's worth. And on day 4, I was out of pain. My tooth didn't hurt anymore, but suddenly my shoulder started to ache, you know, and my back kind of hurt. And I was like, maybe I should take another one of those. And it wasn't me that wanted to take the Vicodin. It was my brain that was like, what was that? That was amazing. I want more of that. So the fact that the chemical is addictive sends signals to us where we might not be an addictive personality, but it fed whatever dopamine receptor or whatever we were looking for, and then our bodies become addicted to it.
Right. So kind of going off of that with that part somewhere up in the cranium, that second half of it, and this is kind of for both of you to answer, where, and it's kind of something you all said, but I kind of don't really understand the whole where the recreational stops and the addiction starts, which is kind of what you were just talking about. But like, I don't understand it. Like,
when your life becomes unmanageable. When your life becomes unmanageable, when you are in addiction, and you're using, let's say, you know, like Dan, you know, was able to just stop, right? A lot of addicts can't just stop.
Right.
You know? And so what happens is they start stealing, you know, whatever it takes to get their addiction fed. You know, when your life becomes unmanageable and starts to fall apart, and you can't keep a job, you know, you can't, you know, do the normal things that you're used to doing, you know, you become an addict. And a lot of people don't even know the difference, because a lot of these guys on the street that we know, it's kind of a mixed bag, because there are guys that have had lives and then become addicted because of a surgery, let's say, right? And kids, man, I know a gal that she was in a very bad car accident, and she got addicted to opiates, and opiates led to meth and opiates both. And you know, this young lady, I picked her up in Seattle, and she always wore a bandana. Well, the reason she wore that bandana was because she had no skin on the metal plate over her head, right? She couldn't stop. And she wouldn't go to the doctor. I couldn't get her anywhere because of the liability problems, and which was a really sad thing, you know. And I still talk to her on occasion. Hopefully the seed was planted, you know. But she can't stop, you know. And here skin is literally rotting off of her body, you know, and that's the sad part of it, because it, you know, a normal person's brain is at an even keel, their dopamine level, right?
Mhm.
And so with an addict, what happens is the dopamine level is they use, and it goes spikes way up, and they stay up here and they're high, and then when they come down, it drops way below the normal level, and then
Right.
it takes 7 to 8 days to come back up and just start to level off again. And
Right.
so the brain receptors are totally different in an addict, you know, than they are. And see, I think you asked, can somebody become an addict? Of course. I think
Right.
that anybody uses enough can become an addict,
Mhm.
because their body will become addicted to it, and
Right.
you know, so on. There are people out there that are functioning addicts. I know them. You
Right.
know, they're, you know, weekend heroin users. I mean,
Right.
I personally
My
could not
ex
be
is
one of those.
definitely my ex
Right.
is definitely a functioning addict. She had a full-time job. She, you know, she did everything. Nobody would even know, but she was still, you know, buying pills. Anytime she got paid, she would look at me and be like, because she'd always use her back as a reason, which don't get me wrong, I'm sure she had back pain. She had some accidents that caused her pain, and we couldn't find anything that helped, and she'd get paid, and she'd be like, I you know, try to come up with some excuse to go buy pills. But
Well, there again, a real addict, you know, it probably was in, you know, her bone marrow. And so when she starts
Right.
to quits using, then that pain comes on at a higher level, right?
Right.
And it stays there for days. And so, yeah, she's got to use to get that dopamine level evened off again.
Right.
and that's
And,
and
you know,
I always tried getting her to put it off as long as possible. I'd always try and find something. We tried CBD, edibles, oils,
yeah.
pretty much anything, just to try and keep her off it as long as possible. Because I was sitting there going, I don't think you actually need it. I think you're just in a lot more pain because you don't have it.
Right.
Yeah, it's an obsession of the mind and the body and the soul.
And do you
And-
think that also pertains to things that aren't necessarily drugs and alcohol? Like, do you guys still classify the addiction, say, like with people who drink like 6 cups of coffee a day and can't do anything? You know what I mean? Like, is that
Well, coffee's a different thing. Let's leave coffee out of it, okay? We're in the Seattle
Okay.
area, and I'm not going.
Oh, give me some. Okay, give me something. Okay, give me
Drink
something
so much
different
freaking
then.
coffee. Yeah, I'll tell you.
Caffeine and
I'll take
nicotine
that.
Caffeine and
Because
nicotine are acceptable in recovery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I got clean, you know, 20 years ago, I had to take a long, hard look at myself in the mirror, because everything I did was addictive, and that goes right down to shopping. And I try and talk to these kids, because I see them. They get the first paycheck. Now, if they don't go out and use drugs, they're going to go out and buy shit they don't need, right?
Right.
And I'll see a lot of that. And I was one of those people that if I had one Zippo lighter, I had 1,000, you know, and
Yeah.
and that's no kidding. I
Right.
did. My house got robbed, and I didn't realize how much my collections were worth until the insurance company went to pay them off, right?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and I had like $80,000 worth of collectible shit that
Wow.
had got stolen, right?
Wow.
I had Mickey Mouse pocket watches, and just, you know, Zippo lighters that I had no clue were worth
Mhm.
you know, $1,000, because I'd pick them up at swap meets or wherever, you know.
Mhm.
And so I had to take a look, and I raced cars, and that was another thing. I found myself throwing my addiction into my racing and whatever
Right.
I did. So I had to look at my whole life and everything I did, because everything I did was evolved around addiction.
Right.
I can look back on it now going, man, you know, I mean, it just went on and on. Everything
Right.
I did,
Absolutely.
I did the excess,
Right.
you know.
And with the racing of the cars, was that more? I'm a car guy. I'm a motorcycle guy.
Oh,
Love it to
I do
death.
too.
Now, was that more of the adrenaline side of it, or because?
Well, yeah, I guess I always I always had hot car, race cars, whatever it might be. And from motorcycles, I started out racing motorcycles, you know, when I was young. And of course, my back started to go out on that. And so I went to cars. And yeah, I'll tell you how bad it got with me. In sobriety, I had the track record at a few tracks around the state. And I would have the track managers call me and say, somebody just beat your track record. And I would load the shit up.
You can't let that happen.
Oh, no.
No.
No. And I would go there and I would spend thousands of dollars to go around that track until I beat that record by a half a second or whatever it might have been.
That's
you know, and I'll tell you what, I sat down one day and I was racing SCCA, and I was actually down in Tacoma, and there was a class going on. And so I was one of the drivers teaching the class. And I thought to myself, and it was free, right? I'm teaching these kids how to race. Anyway, I said to myself, you know, what the hell am I doing? I'm spending all these thousands of dollars driving all over the place to these tracks. And what is it really benefiting me?
But that kind of sounds more like perseverance, not addiction. Like with that mentality.
It was both.
Obsessive compulsive.
It was obsessive compulsive. And it was, you know, it was all encompassing, just like my addiction.
Right.
You know, that's all I thought about was racing. And, or whatever it might have been. And, you know, collecting Zippo lighters, you know, I mean, whatever, you know, I did it to the excess. And, you know, it was it was insanity at its best, because I could afford to do it now that I was clean and sober. But I had nothing to show for it. You know, literally, you know.
But that's an example of Mike's manifesting in different, it's not substances anymore, but it's car racing and Zippo lighter collecting.
And are you talking as of nothing to show for it? Are you talking of monetary value? Because there's people that I know that half a second would have meant everything to them.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it was prestige, a lot of it. And I'll tell you what's funny. I'll tell you this. I used to go to these races out in Monroe, Washington. I don't know if you know about any of those.
Love that.
But it's a racetrack out here. And anyway, so all the top 10 drivers in the state were there. And I knew some of them because they were friends of mine, right? And so they called us in for a meeting, and we all had this track meeting. And then we all went out and, you know, did stuff together. And then 8 o'clock comes around. Well, there was a 12-step meeting that was just a couple miles away. And some of my other buddies and me, we were talking, well, let's go to this meeting, you know, after the track meeting. We'll have plenty of time and, you know, and go out to dinner. So all top 10 drivers, and only a couple of us knew what we were doing. So we went to this 12-step meeting, and, you know, that 8 out of 10 of those guys that were at that track were in that meeting.
Wow.
They were all addicts, right? Every one of us. And we got to talking after that. And, you know, it became an obsession with me, because all during my addiction, I never reached the top 10. I never reached the top 20. But when I got clean and sober, you know, I knew when to hit the gas at the apex. I knew when to hit the brakes. You know, I knew what was going on. And it was incredible, you know. And one of my best friends today, you know, she raced for Hooters. And
there you go.
So
classic.
Yeah, I was her coach for a while. And yeah, I mean, and she became one of my partners kind of in crime with in sobriety. But yeah, you know, it just obsessive compulsive. It was all encompassing. It was like I had to do it, you know. And then until that epiphany came along, where I said to myself, man, you know, it's been a lot of fun, but why? You know, is it part of my addiction is why I'm doing this? And it was hard. It was just like withdrawals. When I quit racing, man, it was everything to stay away from that track, and I haven't been there in 5 years. Not that I wouldn't. Somebody said, I'm going to give you a ride, and they have, but I've gone. In 5 years, I haven't been there, but I quit a little bit before that, and I raced for different people, different cars. But anyway, that's just how I looked at my addiction, and I just piled it up, into one ball, So anyway,
was it similar for you as well? Did you, when you were kind of going through it, did you find yourself doing that with other things as well that wasn't necessarily alcohol as well?
Me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I did the alcohol thing too.
I
Go
still
ahead,
think
Chrissy.
you're talking to me.
Nope, I'm talking to her.
Yeah, it was to the point where, waking up with a hangover, I would say, I never want to do this again.
Right.
I think a lot of people that have had a hangover will say that.
Like 10 out of 10 people that I know would say that.
Right. But it gets to the point where I'm starting to sacrifice things in my life, or things are falling apart. I mean, I'm a high bottom drunk. Like, I never lost my job. I never dumpster dove. I actually, that's not true. I did lose my jobs, but not from different. But, I didn't lose my housing. Like, I wasn't on the street. So it's a sneakier disease for me because my life wasn't falling apart, but shit was falling apart. And there was a couple of times like I got pulled over, and I got a drop to a reckless driving. And you gotta love Edmonds, with a girl in there. I'm like, tee hee hee. They ended up calling me a cab. I didn't even get arrested.
Wow.
They sent me home.
Yeah. I was about to say, if any of us dudes were doing that, they'd throw our asses in jail. Like, there's no way that we would have gotten out of that.
That's for sure.
Well, and it's too bad that they didn't actually, because maybe I didn't learn my lesson, because I continued to drink for another 3 years after that.
Right.
But yeah, dings in the car and just my pride and ego, and just realizing that I just didn't want to do it anymore and couldn't really stop. Well, one day the light switch went off, and I just decided I was like, I'm just done with this feeling. So then I quit smoking. Mike.
Cigarettes, tobacco. Yeah,
tobacco. And I ended up buying a pack of Rolly American Spirits, and I thought that this would help me not want to smoke.
How was the first time rolling a cigarette? Was it fun?
Oh shit, I've been doing this since high school.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. I'm from Bellingham. Anyways,
got it.
I found myself, I would leave my car, but I would find myself driving home faster to have that one a day. And I was like so looking forward to that one a day that it became an obsession. And so, I mean, that's kind of how it works. It's like we decide we don't want to do this anymore. But then there's a battle with it. And then the obsession kicks in. It's not, we can't think about anything else. And it can manifest in all types of different ways. Like Mike was talking about race car driving and collecting and eating, but like cheese feels good to your brain. Cheese actually hits the same spot in your brain as chocolate, heroin, and sex.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So like a lot of people would say, like,
let's back this up. You're telling, so like what part of it? Like where, like, are you talking like serotonin? No, are you talking
the
like
dopamine,
what?
The dopamine receptors.
Okay, now are we specifically talking cheese or are we talking dairy? Like
cheese.
Wow, that's insane. Because I fucking love cheese, but like,
why we're fat? We love cheese, and it makes us feel good.
Very good. And it's funny too because I'm vegan, but my friends will say like, oh yeah, I could go vegan except for cheese. I love cheese. I'm like, what is that? Like, and yeah, so chocolate, sex, heroin, and cheese. Anyways, so everybody enjoys cheese, but not everybody's going to sit down and eat the entire block of cheese.
I would so easily. That's we like not even.
Do we have
so easily
with the cheese? That's the question I have.
No, like I can eat it off the block. Like just give me the block and I'll eat the block. Like it's so good. Like that's weird as shit that she said that.
Ryan, maybe you have an addiction to cheese.
You know what? I'm okay with it. I think that might be the one exception where that's like a somewhat healthy addiction is cheese.
That is
I don't know.
healthy.
That's not going to do as bad. Or people that, you know, they go to the gym, you know, every day, which is awesome, until they're neglecting their family. They stop sleeping. They have calluses on their hands because they're working out so much. You can see the line that's drawn when it becomes an obsession. And it can be sneaky when you think it's a healthy addiction, but any addiction is something that we're like, we should probably take that down a notch, and we're just incapable of doing so.
Right. You said that you quit smoking cigarettes. How long have you quit cigarettes for?
Well, I relapsed.
Oh shit. Okay, so what was your longest stint, and how long did you smoke for?
I've quit a million times. My 41st birthday is in June, so I'm going to try again for that day.
Okay. So how long? So when did you start smoking?
About 17. I tried it
for you, Mike.
14.
Me?
When did you start
About
smoking?
the same.
Yeah, when did you start?
About the same.
About 14.
14, 15.
And so you're still smoking?
I've quit off and on over the years. Christy and I were going to quit, you know, here the other day, and for some reason, one of us. But yeah.
At your height, what do you smoke, and how much do you smoke?
Me?
Both of you, Chrissy and Mike, both of you.
Yeah, at my height, I'd smoke 2 packs a day, and you know, I quit for 9 days, and then I thought, here just recently, I got really sick. I think I had the COVID thing, right? And I was sick for 2 weeks, and I quit smoking. And then I went to here's my addiction. I went to the gas station to get gas, and just like clockwork, I didn't even think about it until I got out in the van and thought, why did I buy a freaking pack of cigarettes?
Right.
You know, and I'll just have one, right? And you know, one leads to two,
one
pack.
Know,
yeah.
You
know, 1 pack. You know, so yeah, I'm back up to a pack a day.
Right. And then what about you, Chrissy?
Yeah, I was down to like 3 a day, and then it went back up to 10. I've been smoking a lot lately, though. I think I'm just feeling a lot of stress in the air.
What do you smoke specifically?
Me?
Yeah.
Yellow American Spirit.
Okay, so it could be worse. Okay.
They're healthy cigarettes.
No, they're not. They're still cigarettes.
I like how she tried that.
Yeah, like what? Or like, who do you think you're talking to?
I actually had a homeless guy bum a cigarette from me, and when I pulled it out of my pack, he went, "Never mind."
Yeah, because he knows what's up. He knows what the true value of the cigarette is.
You know what I wanted to say to him, which I totally did.
At its finest.
What did you want to say to him?
It's not even nice. It's beggars can't be choosers. That's an old adage. That's
it's very true.
You know what's funny? I used to do that too. So at my height, so like I'm at like a year and 3 months without smoking a cigarette, and I still get cravings 26 times a day. All my coworkers smoke. All my closest friends smoke. Like I'm never not around it, and it actually doesn't bother me that other people do it around me. Like people usually ask you like, oh, how do you do it when I feel like that part of it is a little bit easier. I think it's the I don't know, maybe it's like a Twitch thing. I feel like I miss it more because it's like something to do. Like I'm a tattoo artist, and so my coworkers, you know, they'll smoke a cigarette before, we'll take smoke breaks, we'll smoke after we eat lunch, we'll smoke, you know, like it's kind of more of like a gap filler in my life. I feel like that's kind of what I miss more about it, because I can definitely tell you when I was it was 2 packs a day of Marlboro Reds. That was my height
right there.
The Cowboy Killers. I was so into it, and once and at the way end of it, I went through a bunch of different cigarettes, different brands and stuff like that, and I ended on Marb Lights, and I was still doing about like 2 packs a day. But in my head, I almost kind of happened, which you were talking about, like I'd put a cigarette in my mouth and start smoking it, and then like in my head I'd be like, I don't even want the fucking cigarette, but it's almost like my body couldn't stop. it was just like my body knew exactly what to do. I didn't have to think about it. It was just an auto response of just like, you crack the pack open, you start smoking up, then you just hang out. Like I couldn't stop it really, which is really crazy. So obviously you guys are still smoking. Do your significant others still smoke too? Or is that like, does it bother you if other people do it? Like if you are trying to quit, is that something like, do you have to be fully away from it? Like get away from me?
I can't even answer the phone if I'm trying to quit smoking. Like even a phone call is a trigger. Getting a trigger, coffee's a trigger.
Oh shit.
Well, but she's not wrong though. Like that's the thing, is like there's so many things that you pair it with, like an after meal cigarette. Like it's getting it, you go for a drive, like, oh, I got to go to the store, pop a cigarette. On the way back from the store, pop a cigarette. Like I completely agree with that.
I'm a smoker and I don't even think about it. Like, so I would smoke my last job that I got dispatched to. I would smoke on my first break, and I would eat my food, go out, have a cigarette. And then it got cold. I didn't want to go outside. It just stopped. And then I ended up like not having a cigarette for like 2 months. And then I had like half a pack, and I was like, oh, these are old. I'll throw them away, get a new pack. And I just started, like, it was warming up. I'm like, yeah, start smoking again. Like it didn't even bother me. It was just like, I just don't want to go outside in the cold. And I never like ate a meal like, oh shit, got to go smoke a cigarette. Oh, it's break. Got to go smoke a cigarette. It just never even
We need to have a brain study on him.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I enjoy the social aspect of it, because like, hey, they're going out and smoking. I'll go join them. If they're not, I don't care. If it's cold, I would rather stay inside and not freeze my ass off.
Right.
And then also doing construction, if I'm up on a 45-floor tower, it takes forever to get out of that tower. And if I have a 15-minute break or even a half-hour lunch, like that's my entire break is just to go have a cigarette. Like I'd rather sit here in a chair on the floor and relax for those 15, 30 minutes. So I don't know, maybe that kind of helped program me to not need one all the time, just enjoy it when I want to.
See, but you don't know about cold, Dan. So I actually just recently moved here from Michigan, and I lived in the upper peninsula of Michigan specifically, where it would get, on an average winter, we'd have a month or two where it would be consistently, it could get up to like -35. And I would still go out and smoke my cigarette. So like there was no deterring whether or not I was cold. Like you would have to bundle up, get your, and you guys don't know about that out here. It's so warm and nice out here. Like I would be more worried about the rain.
That's a trooper, because you can hardly even breathe when you're smoking.
Oh yeah.
And okay, so back to the whole beggars can't be choosers thing. I had similar situations where like I'd be out and I'd ask for a cigarette, and I would have the same thing where if someone pulled out a menthol, because I think menthols are absolutely disgusting.
Oh, I can't do it.
I don't understand it. I think Mike might agree with me that menthols are gross, but that's just me. But my response to them would be like, but you know what? I can choose to deny your nasty menthol cigarette, so I'll wait. Thank you. It's a real thing.
True addict would have just taken that, mainlined it.
Oh Jesus!
Oh god!
I kind of want to change off the cigarette topic if we're going in the weeds a little bit. Might be one of the last questions before we end up wrapping it up here, but I feel it's kind of a deeper one. So the government helps out a lot with recovery programs, correct? A lot of different aspects of it.
They try.
They try.
They try to.
Well, what? So, I mean, to be completely honest, I don't believe the government should help. What would you say to someone like me who might be like, the government should help? Like, are you guys for the government helping or not helping? It's just kind of like I said, I don't deal with addiction. I've known addicts, but it's almost to me, it's like you kind of did it to yourself. You should find your own private help, kind of a thing. I'm just kind of curious on your guys's, like, what would you say to someone like me who isn't for the government funding stuff like that?
So it's mostly the nonprofits that have to pick up the pieces, like Union Gospel Mission, and most of the charities are actually the ones that pick up where the government leaves off. So we offer insurance, state insurance and stuff, which covers mental health a little bit, But most of the
Right.
addicts and most of the people on the streets, some of them are circumstantially homeless. A lot of them are suffering from mental illness and PTSD.
Right.
And now we found out that a side effect of methamphetamine use is schizophrenia. So you could have had a normal dude that got hooked on meth, and now he has mental issues that needs prescriptions
Right.
to be normal again. And so we've added mental health into what could have just been a trip to detox.
Right.
So with all of the different types of needs and you know, veterans and mothers and children and, you know, kids, people under 18, they offer grants to organizations, and then that's where we pick up and put the facilities together and say, you know, these are the types of demographics that we want to help. But there aren't that many government agencies that deal with people on the streets in the communities. It really comes
Right.
back down to the nonprofits. And we hope that there are grants that can keep us funded so that they don't have to do it. That's not their expertise.
Right.
They pass legislation,
Right.
you know, that's what they do. They don't need to understand people with, you know, domestic violence history and things like that. That's not what Jay Inslee is up there. You know, he has a compassion for it, but that's not his expertise. So he's going to rely on the smaller organizations, the nonprofits, and the charity groups to take over. So
Right.
that's where the government funding comes in. Help us, help you. You want these
Right.
people off your streets? You want to have people stop shitting in the doorways? Well, give us some fucking money so we can put a house together and put these people somewhere.
You fucking tell them, Chrissy. Sorry, that just got me so pumped right there. You fucking tell them. What about you, Mike? How do you feel about that?
That dog I'm gonna kill. I feel the same way. The problem is that what we do, there isn't a lot of grants out there.
Right.
I mean, there just isn't. I mean, I'll tell you, I even work with the State Patrol, and the State Patrol doesn't have grant or doesn't have money to help these people. They call the nonprofits, and
Right.
you know, we need corporate funding, and we need because it costs us, you know, about $1,000 a month to keep the van on the road to go out and help get people into
Right.
detox and treatment, and there just isn't
Right.
funding for that. I mean,
Right.
we were lucky enough to get a van donated by Community Transit to help us do what we do, right? But
Right.
that's it. They gave us the van, and boy, you know, it's been really tough. I mean, we've applied for a number of grants, and we haven't gotten any. We have been
Right.
depending on our supporters, people
Right.
that, you know, maybe family members, a lot of kids or families that we help get into detox, and when they start to get better, you know, they want to help and throw in a few bucks here and there, but it's just nearly not enough. I mean, Christy and I and Kelly, we all throw in our own money, you know,
Right.
you know, to do it, and it is draining to a certain extent.
One of the ideas I had was like the Christian Children's Fund. I wanted to call it Adopt a Crackhead, but then I thought I should probably change it to like something a little more PC, like Adopt an Addict or Adopt a
That's
Homeless.
pretty hardcore. Adopt a crackhead.
That's amazing.
No,
I mean, they
I
got it.
wouldn't call it that. But that was just a slogan.
Honestly, I feel like I would do it just because of the title.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe don't dumb it down. Be extra about it.
So anyway, so it would be taking somebody's face or their story, if they wanted to remain anonymous, and somebody could have special interest in this person's recovery. They could sponsor
Right.
them to go to treatment and detox and get a pair of shoes, you know, and because talking about the homeless population in general, it seems like very daunting and it's overwhelming.
Right.
But it's actually, you know, you're just talking about individuals, and half the homeless people that I've actually got a chance to speak with were very like eloquent and kind, and I was super shocked when I had a chance to actually chat with them to find out who they were.
Right.
And so if people could actually like grab onto one of these guys and be like, see my refrigerator magnet? This is my crackhead that I've adopted. Isn't he cute? And he's doing so well now.
That's
Right.
Well,
Right.
So
you know, and
if someone wants to, so we're gonna kind of wrap up here. But if someone wants to donate, where can they reach you guys, and where can they donate?
We're doing a bunch of fundraisers right now, and we're not the type of nonprofit that expects something for nothing, and so we've kind of incorporated in that. And we're doing. Well, let me see if I can find one. I know I got one. Should have had one ready. But we're doing candles. Right. Well, you can't see this because it's green scroll.
Oh, there it is. Yep.
There we go. But they're 4-ounce soy candles. You can go to our website, which is donate ctcrecoveryservices.org, and we have a
is that all one word?
Yes. Yep.
CTC Recovery Services.
Yep. Donate ctcrecoveryservices.org.
Okay.
And
thank you.
You can go to that. Yeah, go to that website.
You sure it's not fundraising, Mike?
No.
Oh, okay.
Donate. Anyway, so we sell these candles. Not this particular one. This is a small one that was a demo. But the lady that makes these is the same lady that did the Emmys and the MTV Music Awards. She did the gift packages. So she partnered with us to help with the fundraiser. And they smell delicious too. They are really nice.
They got Mike.
Yeah. So we do that. We sell the sweatshirts. We're getting new line of t-shirts. And then we're also going to be auctioning off a motorcycle.
You got my attention.
We haven't quite decided how we're going to do it yet, but if you go to the website, you can see pictures of it. And I've got a lot of the guys that have come to help us from Discovery Channel.
Right.
Matt Bradley and Nick McGlashan and Wild Bill. If you watch the show, all those guys are signing the bike. And,
wow.
I went down and met a bunch of them yesterday. But that's the power of social media.
Right. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I actually got one of those guys to come on with me early on, and has been a big help, in our fundraising. Matt Bradley, he's in recovery and is a big advocate for us and what we do. And they're all there on that webpage. You can go check them out. We also have courage2changehousing.org, which if you go up, you can look in that, and there's recovery stories on there from guys. But the bottom line is that's, where we're getting all our funding now is just selling silly little candles. And we, things like that have helped us, get where we're at. But like Chrissy was saying, what we really need is help in grants. And because they are out there. We just haven't found the ones, and we're just a bunch of addicts trying to help other addicts. And it would be nice to have some professionals that, do that for a living that would come on board with us and help us out a little bit, and that's why we're here. Right. So, that's why I'm here. I don't know about Chrissy. I think she just wanted to be on,
called out.
Injured servitude. Glutton for punishment.
Oh, good. Yeah. Dan, you want to take us out, big guy?
No, I'm gonna let you two, but I do want to say thank you for what you guys do. I know
absolutely, thank you.
It's definitely something that hits close to home, especially with my last relationship, people that I've known. It's definitely it's a struggle and it's a battle, and I do want to thank you for what you guys do. Ryan,
last quick thing, do you have all your social media like that linked on the website as well too?
You know what, I don't know if they have. I think it is on the Courage to Change Housing website. If not, we have a Twitter one, if you go to the Courage to Change Housing, if you just Google it, we come right up to the top. And,
okay, perfect.
I'll definitely put it in the show notes.
Yeah, And then,
Awesome.
Courage to Change Housing on Facebook. Yeah, and kind of see what we're doing, keep up on track.
Absolutely.
Just,
well,
there we go.
There you go.
there it is. What's the scent on that, Mike? What does that say?
This one is what is it? Centinella?
Citrus.
Yeah,
Citronella.
Ooh. It's orange, really nice orange, and yeah, it's got some other herbs in there.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but our motto is
Non-narcotic herbs.
Yeah, it's non-narcotic herbs. Yeah,
Oh,
no green leafy substance in this one.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
Thank you so much, Chrissy and Mike. Thank you so much for everything you guys are doing for your community and for the whole state, the country, everything. We definitely need more people like you. I think we should all say kind of fuck the government. Just like you said, I think it takes a certain person who's been through it to actually be the one that actually helps them. So thank you so much for everything you guys do. And that is wrap for today. And my name is Ryan. That's Dan. That's Chrissy. And that's Mike.
Ryan.
And thank you so much.
Where
What?
can we find you, bro?
Thanks, everybody.
You can find me on Instagram for Designs by Dino. If you come out of this COVID-19 thing and you by chance want a tattoo, that's where you can find me. I'm down in Tacoma. Dan, where can they find you?
You can find this podcast at real_people on Instagram. You can also find me at Big Danny G on Instagram. You can also find my photography at D Block Shots on Instagram. Oh, and don't forget to check out the YouTube page.
Oh, yeah. Guys,
Oh, yeah.
On YouTube.
Mike and Chrissy, we're going to be on YouTube. Can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love
Say goodbye,
that.
everybody.
Thank you so
Hey,
much.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
guys,
Mike
a
and
lot.
Chrissy. Have yourself a great night. Thank you.
Bye,
You
everybody.
too. Take care.
Bye.